It's another Friday, so let's get to some questions from the listeners.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned in to another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. And you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what to expect from this channel, we give you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length. And we also have the Locked On Royals postcast, which is during the season where Chance Lebo will go to you live for about 15 to 20 minutes after the game. Now, before we get started and diving into these questions, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. One last reminder, too, that if I miss your question, it's happened more than a few times before, just because we get anywhere from about 30 to 50 questions an episode. If I ever miss your question, respond to this video. I'll try to answer it before the end of the weekend. If not, then I'll have it answered by Monday. But usually when I do miss it, it's because you didn't title it Mailbag Friday and then put your question down. We get a ton of notifications throughout the week. So if you don't, and it's just a typical question that you have that's not labeled, I'm known to miss it a time or two. But in the past, I was able to get every single one of them. Now we get a ton of notifications because of the postcast and because of this podcast. I'm not trying to miss them intentionally. It just sort of happens and gets lost in me trying to compile all these questions together. Let's kick things off here with question number one from Carl. Massey hit 298, 333, 372 over his last 30 games. His slug was almost 500 over his last 15. Hit better than Garcia in the same time span. He was a different player in that short window after coming off the IL. Am I crazy to hold out hope that he turns things around this year? I don't believe you'd be crazy. I'm somebody that was a big believer in Michael Massey going into the season, and it just didn't work out that way. He's battled injuries before. He doesn't hit the ball incredibly hard, so he relies on some of that good fortune. But he did look really good late in the season. And what I will tell you is this. The Royals will need to make a decision by 4 p.m. today if they're going to tender Jonathan India's contract or they're going to non-tender him. And I'm leaning toward them tendering his contract. But if they don't, they clearly believe that Michael Massey can bounce back in some kind of way. They still could go out there and acquire a second baseman or somebody that could provide depth there. But they could non-tender Jonathan India, and that would tell you more about what they think about Michael Massey and his ability to bounce back. But I don't think you're crazy and holding out a little bit of hope. This one's from Michael Garcia, devotee. Do you think we even have a chance at Joe Adell anymore since Taylor Ward was traded? It's less likely now, just because I believe the Angels want to compete. You can have your own opinion on that. And trading Joe Adell with how young he is coming off the year that he had, with the years of control, you'd have to give up a lot. And I don't believe the Royals want to go that extra mile to bring in someone like Joe Adell. They'll probably have to pivot to another organization at this point. This one's from Jason. Do you think Blake Mitchell and Noah Cameron is too high of a price to pay for Brendan Donovan or Duran? You know, I think with Brendan Donovan, that could get it done. With Jarren Duran, I'd still say unlikely. I mean, the Red Sox are really asking for the moon for Jarren Duran. And though Noah Cameron will be a good starting point, I feel that they want Cole Reagans over Noah Cameron. And I don't think the Royals want to give up really either of those guys unless they could be getting someone that's young, multiple years of control, and would be one of the top bats in their lineup. Now, I've said before, and I stand by it, I feel Brendan Donovan's a better fit, and I believe would be a little bit cheaper than Jarren Duran. But also, it seems like everybody in baseball is going after Brendan Donovan this offseason. This one's from Tom. With the Ward addition, Baltimore is loaded in the outfield. Any chance we could see them line up with KC? You got Beavers, Kowser, and Kerstad for an arm. That could be Bubich or Berger. Certainly possible. I hadn't really been thinking too much about Baltimore. And what I have against those guys is they're either coming off of down seasons or they've never really done it at the big league level. And in my opinion, and it's just one man's opinion, if they are going to acquire an outfield bat, somebody to start every single day, I really want to know what I'm getting. I love upside. I love potential. It's a dangerous word in baseball. But to give up one of your top trade chips, I would rather go with the sure thing over the upside guy. If you're going to flip somebody for an upside guy rather than be more of a depth piece than an everyday starter. This one's from Justin. If you had to clone one player in MLB history to field a full team, pitching excluded, who would you choose? Who would be the wink leak? Bobby Witt Jr. playing catcher or Stanton playing shortstop? I still feel Bobby would be a decent catcher. I feel you could put him just about anywhere in baseball and he would be just fine. I would say if I were to clone one player, by cloning one player just to have the most elite offense ever would be Barry Bonds. But then you have a left-hander playing third, short, second, and that would be very counterproductive. Would I live with poor defense, though, with that type of offense? I probably would, to be honest with you. If I was to include defense here, I'd say like Seattle Mariners A-Rod or Texas Rangers A-Rod, the younger version that could put together 10 war seasons. I'd probably say that would be a better answer. But if I wanted to just score on everybody and be impossible to pitch to, prime Barry Bonds early on in San Francisco or the 70-plus home run season, I'd go that route and just live with the poor defense on the infield. Love the question, though. This one's from Matt. For Ketel Marte, the next 2 years are affordable even for KC. $15 million in 25, $12 million in 26. Even if they take the whole contract, they can't afford him. I disagree with your thought that they can't make two big trades. I think they had the pieces to do so. It's possible to make two big trades. Do I believe the Royals will? No, because I feel to get those two big trades, you're having to trade away a lot of your pitching. And I feel they only want to give up one starter in that rotation to get the bat they need. To trade away two starters from the rotation, now I feel you're playing with fire a little bit. So I'm not going to rule it out. It's not a bad point whatsoever, but I would probably say that if they go big with one of the trades, I would see them filling out the rest of their roster through free agency or some minor trades here and there. This one's from Eli. Do you think Kendry Churio and David Shields will be top 100s when next rankings come out? I really do. I feel that David Shields for sure. I'm very confident that he's going to be a top 100 guy. Kendry Churio's still so young. He will be a top 100 guy, in my opinion, at some point next year. Why not? I'll stay on the optimistic side. I'll say both those guys can squeak into the top 100. It wouldn't surprise me if David Shields gets in like the top 80, top 70 ranks. I would see Churio, if he gets in there, probably in the 90s, just because he's so incredibly young and still in low A. But the upside for both those guys is unbelievably tremendous. I mean, I am not higher on any two pitching prospects in this organization than David Shields and Kendry Churio. This one's from Blaze. Could a Noah Cameron, Wilyer Abreu swap make sense since the team control matches up so well? I feel it would. What would concern me about Abreu is he's a strong-sided platoon guy. So he's going to hit righties. We know he can hit righties. He's an elite defender, gold glove defender. By all means, you would feel great about Wilyer Abreu in the Royals lineup. His inability to hit lefties would give me cause for concern. And if you got Abreu, you're moving Jack Caglione to left field. I'm not moving Wilyer Abreu in that defense off of right. And now Caglione's having to learn left field, which I guess you can deal with it. If he could learn right field, it'd take him more time to learn left just because it's a complete shift in how he's been taught the last couple of months. But Wilyer Abreu's a great bat to have. And being a strong-sided platoon guy is still a good thing. You see more righties than lefties. But if you are going to give up a young pitcher with those years of control, which I believe is 6, I would rather have a guy you don't have to worry about pinch hitting for late in the game because he can't hit lefties. To me, of the options we've discussed, that's Brendan Donovan. You don't have to pinch hit for Brendan Donovan because he's not great against lefties, but he's not as poor against lefties as Wilyer Abreu was last year in Boston. This one's from Caleb. What do you think is a realistic timeline for a trade for a bat? Do you think we see one Thanksgiving week, or are you anticipating waiting until the winter meetings? Because I expect it to be a big trade, I would say that the timeline would probably match up with the winter meetings because you're having to iron out a lot of stuff here. The trade that happened last year on Thanksgiving week was India for Brady Singer, but that's much easier to figure out with two guys that had 1 year of control left, or maybe Singer had 2. I believe he only has one more, though, after this year. Or maybe he's a free agent after this year, I believe it is. So he had 2 years of control. Jonathan India had 2 years of control. That's why it was easier to pull off a trade like that. So I could see a smaller trade happening. I mean, we saw Alex Lang get added to this bullpen last night. So there still could be a few moves that happen. But for a big trade, my timeline is closer to the winter meetings, which is in the middle of December. Let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, still plenty of questions to get to next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Want to tell you about the title sponsor for today's episode in Gametime. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's incredibly frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. And Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go download Gametime today. Let's continue with our questions on Twitter, which will begin with Brian. Thoughts on Mickey Moniak being an outfield target? Like him as a target. Do I like him as the outfield piece you're acquiring? I do not. He had good numbers last year, but I'm also counting in that it was at Coors Field for the Rockies, a poor team. His numbers are going to pop a little bit more, and Coors Field is always going to boost your numbers. So for now, I will say I like him as a depth piece, maybe a fourth to fifth outfielder type, but I could see him regressing if he's not in Colorado this next year. And I don't want the Royals gambling on that, where you go after a guy because the numbers look good in Colorado and they have a high chance of going down a little bit and coming to Kansas City, a completely different ballpark and air, I really should say, in Kansas City than it is in Colorado. Paul's question: ideally, it would be cool to have a broadcast tomorrow early evening after the non-tender deadline, so as we can get the best gauge of the free agent market. Yeah, I did think about that a little bit, since Fridays are just our mailbag days, and they're one of our more popular episodes. It's unfortunate that the non-tender deadline is today. I'm actually filling in for Seren Petro on 8:10 today, so I really wouldn't have a ton of time to do it anyway. But I promise you this, that come Monday, unless there's some big trade that happens over the weekend, we are opening up the week talking about non-tenders, who the Royals non-tendered, who's now available in free agency. We'll have all of that covered and may even make 2 segments out of it. So even though we won't cover it tonight, listen to me on 8:10 WHB around 4 to 4:30, maybe in the 5 o'clock hour, and going over some of those non-tender deals, because we will be talking about it today and probably right when it goes down, and how we get word from the Royals on which guys they are non-tendering and tendering going into 2026. Bobblehead redo guys question: Ramon Laureano, who's a realistic right field option, and any chance we move on from the multitude of fixes that haven't worked out? Isbell, although great defense and would be fine if we didn't need more offense. MJ, India, et cetera. Why isn't Lugo being talked about as more of a trade candidate? Well, we'll start it off with the guys that could be non-tendered. India, certainly. MJ Melendez is going to get non-tendered. Bailey Falter, in my opinion, is going to get non-tendered. So most of those guys are going to be moved on from. Kyle Isbell is going to be on this team next year, whether he's the opening day starter or he's the fourth outfielder. They love his defense too much. Ramon Laureano would be a great get. I don't see San Diego moving him, though. I mean, they got great numbers out of him post-trade deadline. Then he got hurt, and I feel the Padres would have gone deeper in the postseason if they had him, because he was great in Baltimore, great in San Diego, dealt with the injuries. Would be a fantastic get for the Royals. I just don't see him being that realistic for this offseason. And the last question you had there was Lugo being a trade candidate. They just gave him the extension, so you have to worry about the money there. He's now past 35 years old. That's not going to get you a big return, which is why they didn't deal him at the trade deadline this past season, right? They listened to calls, they listened to offers, but Seth Lugo was somebody they wanted to keep around. I still expect him to be good in 2026. Not 2024 good, but good enough. And if you're not going to get a big return, there's no need to trade him away, because teams aren't going to give up a lot to take on a 36-year-old starter who now has 3 to 4 years left on his contract. This one is coming from Morgan. With his $7.4 million due next year in arbitration, do you see the Royals moving on from India rather than hoping he improves this season? I'd personally see if I could trade Mitchell for Jet Williams. Yeah, the Blake Mitchell question really is, what do they want to do in 2027 or 2028? I mean, if Carter Jensen's going to be your catcher of the future, yeah, Blake Mitchell could be his backup. But is Blake Mitchell really a backup catcher? It's always nice to have depth. But to me, I'm not willing to move one of those guys out of position. And that's why I feel that Blake Mitchell can be moved for the bat that you need this offseason. As for Jonathan India, we'll know by 4 p.m. today, which is why I wanted to get this episode out before 4 p.m. I've been 50-50 all off season. I've leaned a little bit more lately toward them tendering his contract, but I'm not going to be floored if they do non-tender him because the money just might not be worth it for a bounce back season from him. Battled injuries, poor defense, not great offensive numbers. I don't feel you'd be losing a lot if you were to move on from him this offseason. This one's from KC Preds fan. While both Donovan and Duran could be absolutely perfect fits, I also have worries of it adding to our problem of having outfielders who are terrible against lefties. Do you think that should be a big concern with those moves, or is the upside high enough to disregard it? So, to me, you've heard me say strong side platoon a lot. Both those guys are lefties, and you see a lot more righties in the season than you do lefties. So as long as they're not hitting 120, 140 against lefties, and I know Donovan was in the low 200s against lefties, Duran, I want to say off the top of my head, was around that same level, you can still deal with it because both those guys are above league average bats despite hitting worse against lefties. The upside's too good, in my opinion, to be worrying about that. To me, if you had a right-handed bat that couldn't hit righties and only crush lefties, well, you can't start them every single day, and they're not worth trading, big time resources for to bring in and be a fourth outfielder, right? Or just a platoon bat. You can find that in free agency, which we talked about in yesterday's episode. So to me, I'm not overly concerned with it. Both those guys would be top 3 hitters on the Royals lineup or top 4 hitters if Garcia, Bobby, and Vinny continue to improve. So I could see them being, really good players for this lineup and a good middle of the order bat, top of the order bat, or wherever you want to hit them. I feel they would fit just nicely. And I'm not overly concerned about their inability to hit lefties at a high rate. Aiden's question, could you see the Royals not wanting to make a trade now because the trade market doesn't seem to line up for them? The closer you get to spring training, unless you have somebody wanting out and you just need to move on from them before spring training, it's possible. But the guys you want to get, the guys that you're talking about, they're going to find new homes or be with their teams come January 1st. I mean, you need to get all your heavy lifting done, in my opinion, by Christmas, really. By Christmas or New Year's Eve if you want to. It needs to be wrapped up by December. Then you can piece together the rest of your lineup in January and February. January is more of that dead period, to be honest with you. After the winter meetings, things cool down. You'll have some minor signings here and there, but nothing that really, opens your eyes a lot. So to me, I would rather them get their trade done before January 1st. If they do have to wait, you just have to realize it's not going to be the guys that we've been talking about. Bryce's question, mailbag question, with guys like Christopher Morel and JJ Bleday getting DFA'd, any chance Casey goes after either or any other non-tender DFA options that you've seen? I will get a better grasp of that, post 4 o'clock today, at least Central Time, because that's where I am in Kansas City. When it comes to Bleday and Morel, I'd rather go with Morel because I feel that he's got some really good upside based on the batted ball metrics. I liked Bleday 2 years ago. In Oakland, they had a bit of a roster crunch, or Sacramento, I should say, although I hate saying that. The Athletics had a bit of a roster crunch. That outfield is loaded. They've got one of the top offenses in baseball. Wouldn't hate it to see a guy like JJ Bleday come in, but he is another lefty bat. If I was to get a bench bat, a fourth outfielder, fifth outfielder, I'd rather than be a right-hander, which Christopher Morel is. This one is coming from Chris. With the trade market and free agent markets both thinning out, are you still optimistic about acquiring a true impact bat? Would they consider a higher-end free agent given the relative lack of middle-tier bats since Ward, Grisham, and Torres are off the table? I still remain very confident they're going to get that impact bat. Maybe that's me being too optimistic. To me, though, the last 2 years missing out on it, this needs to be the offseason you cash in because you've moved on from Melendez, you've moved on from Renfroe, you have a rookie basically in Jack Caglione in right field. You need to get that difference maker in left field. I still remain very confident they're going to be able to get that done. Brett's question, favorite food at Kaufman, go-to food and drink when going to a game. Keep up the good work. Thank you for the kind words, of course, and I'll just go simple. Beer and a hot dog. I'll do a Coors Banquet, and I'll just, go through a couple hot dogs during the game, or I'll just get the foot-long hot dog. Now that they have Joe's, too, in the left center field plaza, I've gotten, a Z-Man a few times before. To me, though, I like to go up to any concession stand, get a beer and a hot dog. It's cheap, it's good, it's fun. and I'll probably always be that way. If I was to get an extra item, bag of peanuts. So I'm very old school like that, but it really is an unbeatable combination. I love, everything you can get at the ballpark, but I'm never getting the brisket nachos or anything like that. The helmet's cool, the ice cream and all that, Dippin' Dots, but to me, I just rather have a hot dog with mustard and beer and peanuts for a 9-inning game. This one's from Jake. Past World Series matchups: Dodgers, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Yankees, Texas, Arizona, Houston, Philly, Atlanta, Houston, Dodgers, and Tampa Bay. I know this is a perpetual question, but how realistic is it to hope for a postseason berth when it seems like most of the time it really does come down to money? Well, I feel that, baseball has the last 2 years, yes, favored the big spenders, right? You get the Dodgers and the Yankees, and then you get the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, but it also forces owners to go, if we want to stay competitive, we got to spend. And most of these teams can spend to be competitive. But I also thought the year that Texas and Arizona were in there, Texas spent a lot of money. Arizona did not. So you can still get there. Now, to win it all, that's the difference here. But you still can build a competitive roster and make a deep run in the postseason with a middle-level payroll. Now, will the lowest spending team get to the World Series? It's unlikely. The good news is the Royals won't be the lowest spending team in baseball probably ever. They're never going to be number one. They're never going to be dead last in baseball. So, I'm not overly concerned about the last 2 years. The Dodgers are a freak of a team, but eventually somebody is going to be able to overtake the throne because I play the odds. It's unlikely that somebody's going to have a three-peat in the World Series. Let's get to one more here before our final break. RB Carr's question: with Grisham taking the qualifying offer and reports the Yankees are hoping to re-sign Bellinger, do you think Jason Dominguez could potentially be available? Cameron enough to do it? I don't think the Royals should trade Cameron for Dominguez. I'm just not that high on him. I mean, he's been the prospect to watch for years, and he's never really been that big-time player. He's kind of like the guy we talked about earlier, big-time upside, but not a sure thing, the Orioles outfielders. Like, Dominguez has upside for sure, but I want a sure thing. I want to know what I'm getting in left field, and truthfully, I don't know what I'd be getting in left field with Dominguez. Let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll get to our final set of questions next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. Want to tell you about the final sponsor today in FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. For my pick, I'm going to go to K-State, Nebraska tonight in Kansas City at the T-Mobile Center. I'll take the over on total points for PJ Haggerty. He's leading the country in scoring, had 37 last night against Mississippi State. No reason to bet against him at this point. I feel he's almost always going to hit the over on his points scored because he's one of the best pure scorers in the entire country. Should be a fun one to watch. And if you're in Kansas City, nothing to do tonight, should be a fun atmosphere with a bunch of K-State fans there and a bunch of Nebraska fans there. Let's jump over to YouTube and kick things off with Steve. How about Burgert in India and a prospect for Donovan? Great show with lots of different perspectives. And as always, appreciate the kind words. Not sure the Cardinals would do that. They're probably not too excited of the idea of Jonathan India, even though it replaces Donovan at second base. Depends on the prospect. I mean, if it was Burgert, the years of control, and then a Blake Mitchell type or a David Shields, which I wouldn't be for, they'd certainly consider it, but they've got so many suitors for Brendan Donovan. They're going to get the deal they really want and the best possible offer. That's the issue with wanting a player that everybody else in baseball is wanting. The Royals don't have a high-ranking farm system. The Cardinals know that, which is why if they trade Donovan to the Royals, they're going to get the starter that they want. And I just don't know if Ryan Burgert's number one on their list. This one's from John. I read an article that in part said the Rangers may be shopping Adolis Garcia ahead of the non-tender deadline. If there is truth to that rumor, do you think the Royals would and should be interested? We talked about this a little bit last week. They are shopping him. And if they don't land a deal today, they might be non-tendering him. And so I would like that as a platoon option if you didn't have to give him much, just because I think having a right-handed bat with that type of power off the bench would be nice to have. But also, is it the perfect fit for the Royals? He's not. He is a great defender in right field. That would help Jack Caglione if you're looking for that right-handed bat. So we'll see if they'll line up. But I think the Royals should be interested. It's at bare minimum worth a thought, worth a phone call with Chris Young, the former Royal and now GM of the Texas Rangers. This one is coming from Grant. Who do you think will end up with the 2026 higher OBP, Jack Caglione or Carter Jensen? I'm going to go with Carter Jensen, a better walk rate. I think right now a more polished hitter. I'm more so worried about the slug and home runs for Jack Caglione. I want Carter Jensen to be a more well-rounded hitter than Jack Caglione. This one is coming from Obi. Do you think that adding MacArthur back is good, and will this mean we will have an HDH again with Ursig, MacArthur, and Estevez? Thanks, and great job on the show. I will say that we're never going to get another HDH. They just set the bar so high, and that was one of the best 1-2-3s in the bullpen that game has ever seen. So putting that level of expectation up there is a bit too much. MacArthur's just depth. I mean, I'm hoping that he can bounce back. He's always a joy to talk to in spring training, and I do feel he'll be much better than he was in 24. But first things first, he's got to get through spring training healthy. And I feel the Royals settling the arbitration case with him shows that they do feel he'll be healthy in spring training and have a chance to compete for a bullpen spot. But at bare minimum, you can have somebody there that has competition in spring training and can get the most out of other guys that are fighting for a spot. But I still feel the stuff is there. But to get an HDH bullpen, even if MacArthur did hit his ceiling, even as Ursig and Estevez are not as good as Greg Holland and Wade Davis were in their prime. This one is coming from Jersey Jayhawk. Who do you think are the next Royals to get their number retired? I think it'll be Gordon, Salvi, Greinke, and Bobby. The next one to get retired, oh, man, it's tough. I mean, I would say Alex Gordon would be the next one to get retired, but does he deserve to have it retired? I mean, you can't retire everybody's number out there, but I would say that he's got a really good chance to, a lifelong Royal, fan favorite, Platinum Glove winner, multiple-time All-Star. Salvi will have a good chance too, and it wouldn't surprise me if they hold off on Gordon and then retire Salvi's number because he played a little bit longer and was an absolute icon for this franchise and this city. So Gordo or Salvi would be my votes to get their number retired. This one's from the Royal Rupert. Did you see the Royals trading with the Mets for a major league ready super prospect Carson Benj and Jet Williams? The second time we've heard Jet Williams today. What package of players would it take? I don't see them making trades for prospects right now. The guy that I feel would be really interesting would be Brett Beatty. They had interest last offseason, had a really good year last year, can play second and third. If you non-tender Jonathan India, maybe he's the guy you look to over a Brendan Donovan or a Jarren Duran. He doesn't play the outfield, but that would be a very good bat for the lineup, a 26-year-old, and you'd have one of the better infields in all of baseball. But for now, I don't see them making a trade for younger prospects, even if they are top prospects, because even teams like the Mets aren't going to want to move on from guys like that, despite being able to afford pretty much anybody they put their mind to. Robert's question, Jack, I just posted on another podcast. Are we worrying too much about left field? MJ Melendez started finding his bat at the end of last year. He could be back. Yeah, he started finding it in AAA. He didn't find it at the big league level, never did last year, and certainly didn't in 2024. Unfortunately, I do feel that today he's going to be non-tendered. And there's still a chance he's back because I'm not sure who would take a chance on him. But fans need to be worried about left field. If they don't make a move for a left fielder or to have an impact bat in this lineup, you're going to get more of the same for that outfield production, which is one of, if not the worst in baseball. This one is coming from Mike. Orioles already had a full outfield and need pitching before the trade with LA. Now they seemingly have too many outfielders and even less pitching. Are they a good trade partner for the Royals? Yeah, we touched on this a little bit. They do line up. Do they have a sure thing in the outfield? They do not. You'd be banking on upside, which is fine, but am I willing to give up Noah Cameron or Chris Bubich for that? Probably not. I want to have more of a sure thing if I'm going to be moving one of those two starters. This one's from Colton. One interesting player that could be good in the middle of the order and could be an everyday right-handed left fielder would be Elliot Ramos, has multiple years of control, maybe a little bit pricey. Any thoughts on that being a viable target? Love this target. Actually read David Lesky's Inside the Crown the other day on trade targets. He's one of them. I follow the Giants pretty consistently. My brother lives out there. He's a Giants fan, so I know all about Elliot Ramos. He's a bit of an adventure in left field, but love the bat. Can hit him top of the order, middle of the order, big-time pop, and that's a tough outfield to navigate and also have a lot of power for in left field. He's also the last guy to go into McCovey Cove from the right side, right? We saw Buster Posey do it a few times, but Elliot Ramos has that tremendous pop from the right side and would be fun to have in the middle of the order. I'm not going to rule it out, actually, if the Giants are trying to go and get someone like Kyle Tucker, who, yes, would play right field, but it makes that outfield a little bit more crowded. Logan's question, I don't want to overreact, but I think the Royals need to get moving. There just isn't that many impact bats that are available for trade. We need to package Cameron, Mitchell, and whoever else it takes to grab Brendan Donovan. Lots of team control and would have a huge impact. I do feel they need to get moving. To me, if they don't have a deal done by the winter meetings or after the winter meetings, I'd be feeling a little bit uneasy. But I do feel they're going to have some deal in place post winter meetings. Like that's another month they have to make a deal. And since we've only seen one big trade so far, once that domino falls, everybody's going to start making deals. And then they're going to have their feet to the fire. They're going to have to strike a deal or they're going to be left in the dust. This one is from B3. Let's talk about Jason Dominguez trades, given that Grisham was re-signed, and I think he's more available than we realize. Also, please answer my other Mailbag Friday questions. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing them on here. I must have had them, lost it in trying to find any of these notifications. So if I missed them, just respond to this video since we're kind of coming up on time here. We did touch on Jason Dominguez a little bit. I'm just not that high on him. I don't feel he'd be that much of a difference maker in left field. The Yankees have given him multiple opportunities, and if they do trade him, it says more what they think about him than what the Royals think about him. But again, if I've been missing your questions, just respond to this video. I know I've done it to a few people before. It's not intentional. Just we have a lot of questions to get to. This one's from Matt. After the dust settles, who is the Royals left fielder on opening day, and where is he hitting in the lineup? It's so tough to tell because, we brought up multiple names. Brendan Donovan, I'll say him for now. I'll say they go the extra mile there and try to acquire him. So I'll say Brendan Donovan will be the team's opening day left fielder, and I'll put him at the leadoff spot because I could see them either moving Jonathan India down or Jonathan India is no longer on the roster. This one looks like is from RT. Other than Donovan and the Boston guys, who are some other possible realistic trade targets that could be available and move the needle? Man, I would say that, I like the Ramos idea. That's pretty exciting to think about there. Brenton Doyle's another name that could move the needle a little bit. And then if you just wanted to go with a platoon, the guys we mentioned in yesterday's episode is something that we could certainly go for. But yeah, I'll probably dive in that a little bit more next week because I'm sure we'll get more rumors after we get all the guys that were non-tendered and now would be free agents for the Royals to pick up. B3's question, this must have been the one that I missed on you. Could the Royals approach this differently in the trade market and strike a deal with the Dodgers for someone like Jose De Paula or Kendall George? Hate to say it, but I'd rather sign a guy. I just don't see the Royals being big spenders in free agency. They're pretty adamant about wanting to trade for their bat. If they do sign somebody, I could see it more so being a platoon bat, as we discussed in yesterday's episode. Might have one or two more here. If not, then that'll probably do it for us. Looks like we have Mike's question here. We'll end it with Mike. Hypothetically, if a blockbuster trade doesn't happen and we turn to the free agent market, what are your thoughts on Max Kepler? I would like Max Kepler if he was a right-handed bat, but to sign a lefty, it doesn't feel like it'd be a good move for the Royals just because they have so many left-handed bats in that outfield already. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll be off this weekend unless they make a big trade. So until Monday, when we talk about the non-tender guys, you take it easy, Kansas City.